Protect your privacy online with the best VPN for gaming, ExpressVPN, and visit expressvpn.com/GhillieMaster, linked in the description, to find out how you can get 3 months free. The Annihilator used to be the cream of the crop back in GTA 4. It was the fastest helicopter in the entire game and the only helicopter in the base game that was weaponized. In multiplayer, you feared this beast, as the only way you could reliably take it out on the ground was with a rocket, which were few and far between in GTA 4's multiplayer. If a good pilot were to be in the cockpit, you were at the mercy of those machine guns. In this video, we're going to be taking an in-depth look at the Annihilator and Rebalanceed the helicopter, taking into account its history, the current climate of GTA Online, and the aspects of the vehicle that players preferred 13 years ago over today. The Annihilator was brought to life in the franchise in the base game of 2008's GTA 4. Right away, it stood out in the world of GTA 4 as it was the only weaponized helicopter in the game, and it was the fastest helicopter in the game. The helicopter is equipped with 4 miniguns that alternate sides when firing, and you will have to reload after firing for a few seconds. However, despite these flaws, the damage output was really good if you could hit your shots. Although doing that is easier said than done because it did not have a reticle in GTA 4, so players eventually came up with ways to aim more accurately using the first-person hood option combined with a cinematic camera angle of the side minigun. The handling and the performance of the Annihilator was another great aspect of the helicopter. You could really whip this thing around in the air and do all sorts of cool tricks with it, which made dogfighting and general combat with the vehicle much more fun. In the expansions of GTA 4, The Lost and the Damned, and the Battle of Daytona, the Annihilator was upgraded to have explosive rounds instead of the regular machine guns from the base game. These do massive amounts of damage, blowing up vehicles on the first hit. However, there were no tracer effects on the weapon, which made it even harder than it already was to see where your shots are going. It's still unknown as to why they made this change to the helicopter. It's not like it was bad before, maybe they thought it would be too weak against the Buzzard in the Battle of Daytona. Your guess is as good as mine. Unfortunately, the Annihilator's reputation as the king of the skies would come to an end with the release of GTA 5, because GTA 5 had 3 weaponized air vehicles at launch: the Buzzard, the Annihilator, and the Laser, with the Laser crushing both those helicopters for reasons I don't think I need to elaborate on in this video. We all know the fate of helicopters in GTA Online. Not only that, the helicopter handling was changed in GTA 5, making them much less maneuverable overall, and so the Annihilator went from an agile beast in GTA 4 to a slow, clunky sitting duck in the sky. One thing that it did keep though is its amazing machine guns, which to this day, 8 years later in GTA Online, are still the most powerful aircraft machine guns, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're good. So to summarize where the Annihilator went wrong, it just doesn't have the same uniqueness that it had in GTA 4, it lost its touch. On top of that, 8 years later, calling the Annihilator's defense outdated would be a massive understatement. Our power level as players creeped up, but the Annihilators stayed the same. The good thing is, not much needs to be done to the helicopter to make it viable in a current setting of GTA Online, so for this rebalance, the gun is generally going to remain the same, but it will have a few improvements to it. The biggest changes to the vehicle come in the handling and the armor department. The armor will be buffed to an amount that I feel is balanced for a helicopter of this size in 2021's GTA Online, and the handling will be buffed massively to give it that Grand Theft Auto 4 feeling again. Let's begin by talking about the gun changes. First, for modding purposes, I replaced the guns that it used to have, which were the Buzzard guns, with the gun from the Tula. This won't change anything, as I copied all the aspects from the Buzzard guns to the Tula gun to modify them. The only thing this does is allow me to modify the Annihilator guns without changing the guns on the Buzzard at the same time, because they both use the exact coding for their weapon. The damage was at 30, I upped that to a staggering 300, which looks like a massive upgrade, and it is, but it's not exactly that much more powerful. However, this will pretty much guarantee a kill if you do manage to hit your target. The hit limbs damage modifier is up from 0.5 to 0.75, and this is exactly what it sounds like. When you hit someone in the arm or leg, there is a damage reduction. It's different for every single weapon, and this change decreases that damage reduction. Next, the vehicle damage modifier is set to 0.350. Normally, the Annihilator guns don't specify a vehicle damage modifier, but this is needed because if there was no vehicle damage modifier on this gun, with the new 300 base damage paired with the other changes I'm about to talk about, it would just instantly blow up cars the moment I shoot them, and we don't want that. It's way too overpowered. So with this line of code, the vehicles only take 35% of the main base damage, which is still more than they take now, mind you. I added more force to the weapon overall, so NPCs and vehicles will get pushed a bit farther when they get shot. This has no effect on damage or anything, it's just a visual effect to make it feel more powerful. Now here's the fun one though, the rate of fire. The rate of fire was at 0.04, which comes out to 1500 RPM, but for a helicopter to be called the Annihilator, we want to see that gun shredding like we've never seen it before. The helicopter is built around this 4 minigun combo, so I lower the time between shots to 0.005. which gives it 12,000 RPM, which isn't exactly as crazy as it looks on screen. To compensate, I actually increased the spin-up time to 0.5, so you have to hold down the fire button for a little longer before the guns actually start shooting. Now take a look at all these weapon changes in action. Up next, let's take a look at the armor of the Annihilator. Right now in GT Online, it's terrible. In fact, no vehicle should be this weak in the game these days. The ease of access players have to explosive weaponry is just ridiculous, and the Annihilator only takes 1 rocket to blow it up. Or 2 explosive rounds. Just absolutely awful. So I gave it a nice buff by adding the capped explosion damage flag and lowering its weapon damage and engine damage modifiers from 0.5 and 1.5 to 0.125 and 0.250. And this allows the Annihilator to tank 2 rockets before blowing up on the 3rd. And for explosive rounds, it now takes 14 to blow it up, which is really what it needs in order to survive in today's environment. In my personal opinion, explosive rounds should not affect helicopters as much as they do jets, because first of all, helicopters are much more vulnerable and not as hard to hit. They can easily be taken out with homing rockets for the most part, whereas jets, they are not affected by homing rockets at all because Rockstar doesn't know how to make a homing launcher to take down jets. So that's why the explosive rounds are in the game. The only issue is that with them adding explosive rounds to take down jets and counter them, they also completely ruin helicopters, so they're kind of unusable in today's environment. Anyways, that's my little mini rant there. Now moving on to the handling of the Annihilator, which this is the biggest change that comes into play here. For starters, the overall mass of the vehicle was lowered from 13,000 to 8,000 just to make it feel a tad lighter. These next 3 are what give it the GTA 4 style handling that we all know and love. The thrust, this value determines how fast the helicopter can gain altitude, and I believe it also increases the top speed of the aircraft. That was raised from a putrid 0.47 to 1.2. The yaw multiplier value is what influences how fast the helicopter moves when you hit LB and RB on Xbox to turn it, and for this one I just gave it a slight buff from negative 1.05 to negative 1.3. Then we have our auto stabilization values here, the attack lift and the attack dive multipliers. These affect how much resistance the helicopter has when you try to tilt it straight down or straight up, for example. It just contributes to the clunkiness of the vehicle. This needs to be lower on pretty much every helicopter in the game, to be honest, but I guess we'll get there eventually. For this scenario with the Annihilator, I lowered it from 2.5 to 0.25. We don't want it to be exactly at 0 because then you'll be doing backflips and front flips non-stop just by tilting it. You want a little bit of resistance, but not so much where the game is controlling it more than you are. Now what I've done is a few tests to show what the new handling is like with the Annihilator compared to the old one. The test and the version of Rebalanced or Current will be labeled at the top of the screen, so let's check out this new handling, shall we? And when you have all these handling buffs together, you can just track your targets so much easier. What I'm doing here is a technique that if you've ever played Battlefield, you probably have heard of it. It's called circling. It's basically a way to keep the target under fire while remaining as agile as possible, because if you go straight at the target, you're either going to get too close or be too predictable and get slapped with a rocket. Either one, you're going to die. And with the new handling, it's so much easier to just line up the shots because you can go for steeper angles and still have controls, whereas in the current game, if you want to do this exact same thing and circle your target, you have to keep it at a certain angle, because if you don't, you'll end up in a situation where you have to tilt back and forth to get the momentum to turn down at the right angle you're trying to get, which isn't ideal and most likely is going to get you killed. But there you have it, guys, the Rebalanced Annihilator. I know it's been a while since the last episode. These do take quite some time to put together though, so bear with me here. Let me know what vehicle I should rebalance next in the comment section down below. And if you enjoyed the video or found it helpful, feel free to leave a like, as well as subscribe to my channel for more guide and PvP related content. Huge thank you to all my channel members for your support. If you'd like to become a member for some exclusive perks, you can either use the join button or the link that's down in the description. And as always, thanks for watching, and have a great day.